whipping it, whipping it, whipping it, whipping it, whipping it, whipping it, whipping it. Yo, what's good with y'all boys? And today we better be talking about the Saw franchise, ranking them from worst to best. Alrighty, and as y'all saw at the beginning, y'all can go check out my music at Kyle G. And yeah, you already know the deal. Let's get right into it. I like these movies, and there's some of them I like more, and then some of them I don't like. Actually, coming in ninth place, you got Saw 3D. So yeah, this is like the seventh movie. Yeah, the seventh movie, and this is like the franchise was done for sure. Like, this movie has the same old shit, just done even worse, and it just feels cheap and really gimmicky at this point. Yeah, this is the franchise. I mean, the movie that has the lowest budget, I'm pretty sure, in the whole franchise. And yeah, you can see it, man. Some of the blood looks like freaking tomato juice, and then some of the acting is just so terrible in this movie. It's bad. So yeah, like I said, you get the same old shit, and it's just not done as good. And then you got the whole fake Jigsaw survivor, which was actually a good idea, but they didn't execute it very good. The way that they put it all in there, the traps were just not good. I don't really remember a lot of the traps in this movie, to be honest with you. And yeah, there's just too much going on in this movie. You got the whole thing where Jill's trying to run away from Hoffman, and he's trying to get her. It's just like a clusterfuck, and then there's other shit going on in this movie. It's crazy. And yeah, Cary Elwes comes back in this movie. That's the other thing that happens. And he's, the whole time you're like, okay, he's got to be the apprentice because there's no other reason why he would come back. And then he ends up being the apprentice, and it's really predictable and just not very satisfying. And then, yeah, like whenever Hoffman kills Jill, it's also unsatisfying, even though it's cool seeing the bear trap go off. It kind of sucks seeing Jill die because that was like the whole thing in Saw 6 was like Jigsaw, John Kramer was he gave her the box so that she could like stay alive and, know that Hoffman is not a good dude. But it just compromised the whole Saw 6 thing. And that was honestly flawed to begin with. A lot of people don't like that whole storyline of how Jigsaw would have, because they think that if John Kramer knew that Hoffman was not good, that he would have just stopped working with him. He would have just fucking cut him off right there. The 3D gimmick is bad in this movie to go with all that. It's just, like I said, the movie looks cheap. It's got a bad 3D gimmick, bad characters, bad acting. Just one of the worst horror movies I think I've ever seen, bro. It's bad. I think one of the only things about this movie that even works a little bit is just the love triangle trap at the beginning, where there's the two dudes fighting over the saw, and they could either saw the other dude or they could saw the girl, and they end up sawing the girl. But that's like the only one that even really is that good. And then coming in at number 8, you got Saw 5. This is one of the most forgettable movies in the whole franchise. I just don't care about this movie at all. I'm so burnt out at this point. Honestly, whenever you get to Saw 4, you're really burnt out at that point because there's just not any good ideas. I think that the only sequel that's even good after Saw 4, spoiler alert, is Spiral. I think that that's the only movie after Saw 3 that even works. And this is the movie where you get the Hoffman backstory, all the shit that was going on with in the first 3-4 movies or whatever. You get his point of view and everything, the way that he saw it. And this is the movie where you get like Megan Good is in it. Like, I just remember her because she's bad as fuck. There's some unique traps in this one where like the people put their arm in that thing and it extracts your blood. But my favorite part about this movie, probably, other than the Hoffman backstory, is the whole thing where the victims needed to work together in order. It would have been way easier to succeed in the end if you worked together. but they ended up not working together, and just one by one, like Willy Wonka style, they go into each room and they just keep getting picked off one by one until at the end there's two, and they have to do that whole thing where they extract all the blood. And it would have been way easier if there was more people, but they didn't work together. But yeah, this is just the movie that's so forgettable. Other than those two things that I just talked about, everything else is so hard to remember. You have to rewatch it and like take notes to even remember what the fuck happened in this movie. There's the part where Hoffman like outsmarted Strom and like put him in the coffin at the end or whatever. Like it doesn't really work because I don't even care. I'm not invested in Hoffman as a killer. I think he's just really uninteresting, and he's like, it's like what Amanda does, but it's even worse because he doesn't have Jigsaw there to like keep him in check. So it's like he just kills people for no reason, and there's no Jigsaw there to like give him a fucking slap on the back of the head and tell him not to do that. Like he literally is just doing this, and it's kind of annoying. So yeah, coming in at number 7, you got Saw 4. And this is where like the movies, like I said, started to get bad, and the whole Hoffman apprentice twist just does not work in this movie. Like I said, it honestly felt redundant at this point, and then they just did it like 3 more times with other characters in this franchise. But Hoffman was like the first guy that you're just like, why the fuck are you the apprentice? No, you're not. That's dumb. You should not be the apprentice. We don't care about you. You were obviously the apprentice from the beginning, but we don't care whenever you get revealed. And yeah, this is, along with, I think 4 and 5 to me are the most forgettable movies in this whole franchise. I remember Saw 3D more because it's just so terrible. This is just like Saw 5, where I can only remember like 2 things about this movie, and that's the whole Tobin Bell backstory, where you get to learn about his baby, and how his baby died, and then you see him. That's whenever he started getting into the traps, and he had the knife trap and all that shit. And yeah, you got the Tobin Bell autopsy. I think that's also it's. I don't remember as much, but whenever I watch the movie, I'm like, okay, yeah, I really like this part. It's just like it's one of the better autopsies in a movie, along with the autopsy of Jane Doe, and then there's some other ones too. But like, it's just like a really unsettling autopsy, and then you see John Kramer there, and that's really like the last bits of John Kramer that we get, other than in like Jigsaw, and then in like flashbacks and shit. So yeah. But yeah, like I said, one of the biggest problems with this movie is just Hoffman. He's just a terrible killer. He's just not a good apprentice. He's not interesting at all. He doesn't let you. He doesn't give you the chance to survive in your traps a lot of the time, and then most of the time. And his motive for killing people is just so stupid. It's the most retarded motive probably in this whole franchise, about the whole door kicking thing. Who gives a fuck, really, at that point? It's one thing if he was murdering people or whatever, but the whole door kicking thing, and then at the end they're like, oh, he kicked the door in, so they all have to die. Like, I don't know, it just doesn't work for me. I've heard a lot of people say that it doesn't work for them, and yeah, that's really the most memorable thing about this movie to me, besides the whole Tobin Bell backstory, is the door kicking thing just ruining the whole movie and being so retarded. So yeah, coming in at number 6, you got Jigsaw. And yet again, we have another movie that tries to say, you know what, there was another guy the whole time as an apprentice, and it just never works. It never works. It only worked with Amanda. That's the only time it ever really worked. So, besides Spiral, this is probably the best shot and best looking movie in the whole franchise. I don't know if that's just because it's new, and then it has more hype around it, so we're more of a fan base, so they have more money and stuff. And then there's newer technology and shit. I don't know if that's what it is, but like, I feel like it's the money and then the newer technology. But yeah, this is by far, besides Jigsaw, besides Spiral, there's some really good shots in Jigsaw. And one of the best parts about about Jigsaw, god damn, I keep fucking getting them mixed up. One of the best parts about Jigsaw is probably the best part about Jigsaw is just it's simple. It's a simple concept. Because whenever you watch the Saw 4, 5, and even like 3 and 6 and all that shit is so confusing. You know, Saw 7, I don't even know what the fuck's going on in Saw 3D, bro. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. But in this movie, it's just an apprentice guy who you think it's John Kramer, but you find out it's an apprentice, and all the victims and all that shit you're watching, that's actually in the back, um, it's actually in the past, which is, it's a worse version of Saw 2, which kind of segues me into one of my negatives, is it's just kind of the same old shit. The traps are not very good, really. They're kind of like the same old type of traps that we've had, and a lot of them are like paying homage to older traps that we've already had before, or they're just kind of ripping off older traps that we've had before in ways that aren't as good. So, and then a lot of these traps are really like, is meticulous the right word? Where you have to be in the right spot at the right time, and if you're not, then there's no way it would work. And it's just like, what the fuck? It just draws so much misbelief. Yeah, like I said, the movie is just, the twist is done way better in Saw 2, the timeline twist, and then like you just don't care about anything going on in this movie. You don't root for anyone. It's just like all the people are all bad people, and then you find out that they've done like really bad shit, and then you're just like, okay, why the fuck would I care about you? I just want to see you die anyway now. Like, so I don't know. This movie is just the same old shit. It's not the worst Saw movie. Whenever Jigsaw is in the movie, it's pretty good, and then the unique concept makes it good. So that's all. Coming in at 5, you got Saw 6. And just like Jigsaw, Saw 6 is just a less interesting version of Saw 3. It's the best movie besides Spiral since Saw 3, in my opinion at least. And this is probably the movie with the best version of Hoffman. He has the only motive that even kind of makes a little bit of sense in this movie. The whole insurance guy who doesn't care about who he rips off or whose money he takes or who dies or anything like that. He doesn't give a fuck. Yeah, like the traps just kind of go with the themes of that too. So like the traps aren't very good in this movie, I don't think, but at least the traps go with the themes. Probably the best trap is the shotgun carousel trap, where they're all in the carousel spinning, and then he chooses who dies or whatever. That's probably the best trap. Yeah, this is like one of the movies that has like an opening scene that I can remember even. But it's the only one that I can remember, and it's the best, like a really good opening scene for sure. And then it's just where you have to put your amount of meat on the scale, and whoever puts more meat on the scale wins. But like in order to do it, you have to literally chop it off and put it on the scale. And then there's the part where the bitch just says fuck it, and she just cuts her arm off and puts it on the thing, and then the guy's like, and then he just dies. So yeah, like I said, this is probably the best version of Hoffman we've gotten. There's that one scene where Hoffman just goes fucking ballistic and kills everybody, just starts fucking stabbing people, just going crazy as fuck. And yeah, there's the whole part where John left Jill the box of warnings and all that shit, and all the stuff that he was telling her about what was happening. And then she found out about Hoffman and all that shit, and then she put him in the reverse bear trap, but he got out because of the bars or whatever. Yeah, I think this movie has a really dumb ending where like he has to like, where he meets the people that he took money from or whatever, and then their dad died. I think dad died or some shit like that. It was some stupid shit where it's like he had to like, you knew obviously that they weren't even gonna let him live, so you're just not even really stressing. You're just like, alright, when's he gonna die? Like, you know, like you knew he wasn't gonna make it out. There wasn't any sense of urgency, is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, it was dumb. Overall, Saw 6, not that bad, but it's not that good. It's just kind of like a meh movie to me. And this is whenever the movies start to get really good for me, a lot better at least. Saw 3 coming in at number 4. And This movie has like a little theme going throughout. As you can, like, whenever you watch it, you like, not only is one of the main characters in the movie a nurse, you can tell that there's like this whole like medical horror, medical phobia thing going on, like where you're like scared to go to the hospital because you're scared to get operated on type thing. um Not only that, John Kramer has cancer, so all that shit, you put all that together, it actually works really well for the mix of that. And speaking of John Kramer is in this movie a lot, and that is probably the best part. That is the best part about this movie. John Kramer is in this movie a lot, and him and Amanda and the nurse, their dynamic is probably my favorite part of the whole movie. Yeah, like I said, Jigsaw and Amanda's chemistry together is like, it's not the chemistry. Like whenever they challenge, whenever he challenges her ideals, you really like, you really feel him, and you're just like, yeah, like, fuck this bitch, you know, like she ain't shit, you know, like. And a lot of people don't like how she doesn't let you live. This is where it works for me because John Kramer is here, and he's alive, and whenever she fucks up, he tells her that she fucked up, and that's why it works for me better than whenever Hoffman fucks up and we found out in like a flashback little scene that you just don't even really care about. It doesn't really work, but in this, it has a lot more emotional payoff. And yeah, like Amanda's arc is like she doesn't let people live, and then she's trying to be the apprentice of Jigsaw because like she used to be a drug addict and all that shit, and then he made her like into a better person a little bit, but she's now like a murderer, so she's not really a better person, but she's kind of like more of a murderer now and all that shit. But yeah, this movie, there's like a theme going throughout about valuing the lives of others, and it's done way better in this movie than it is in Saw 6. And that's one of the main themes about the insurance guy. He doesn't value the lives of others. I think it works better in this movie, not only because it was done the first time and it's more original, but also just because like the whole car crash and his kid dying, it just resonates more with me. Something about kids dying, just like, of course, is always gonna like hit you in the heart more, and it's gonna hit you in the feelings more. But and then you have the whole father mother storyline going on, where the father, like I said, he's trying to get, trying to keep the people alive because of what happened to his son, and then you got the mother, she's trying to keep John Kramer alive. And she has this whole shotgun collar around her neck. And Amanda the whole time is jealous of the nurse. But yeah, it's just cool how they have to keep John Kramer alive the whole time. It's a good dynamic. It adds to the medical theme of this storyline. It adds to that even more. So I love it. And then you get to the end of the movie and you find out that Amanda was actually the one being tested the whole time. You thought it was the father and mother. They were kind of being tested, but it was mainly Amanda being tested. They were just used as pawns to test themselves, but to mainly test Amanda because she doesn't let people live. And then at the end of the movie, she wasn't trying to let the nurse live because she was too jealous and all that shit and all, you know. And then, of course, I cannot talk about this movie without talking about The Rack. Probably the best trap in the whole Saw franchise. Probably the most gruesome, too. Where they just twist the arms and the legs and all that shit and your head and all that shit. Everything gets twisted. And yeah, just fuck that. This is where body horror, was Saw 2 and Saw 3 were the two movies that had the best body horror to me. So yeah, coming in at number 3, you got Spiral, Book of Saw. And this is just a really good return to form. Yeah, I just think this is the best movie after Saw 2. It has my favorite cast of characters in all these movies. You know, Chris Rock, his performance is a little over the top sometimes. It's a little bit too far over the top, but he's funny and he still gives a good enough performance where you can get over it. And then Samuel L. Jackson, his performance is good as always. He's always charismatic and all that shit. And I think that their chemistry is actually pretty decent together. Like, you kind of actually believe them as a father and son. And yeah, this is a really good looking Saw film. This is the best looking Saw film besides Jigsaw. My favorite thing that this movie does, though, is the interesting new direction that it goes in it. We've never had a Saw movie that's like all the way like this. Like the first Saw movie was like kind of a cop thriller, but it wasn't like 100% cop thriller. There was a lot more of like a psychological shit going on in that movie with in the bathroom. There was a lot more cop thriller stuff in this movie, and then the traps were more in the background. Like there was a lot of traps, but they didn't take up as much time as the traps in the other movies did. So, and yeah, this time is like one of the better killer motives we've ever had, in my opinion. Where his dad got killed, and he watched his dad die, and then he grew up, and he saw Chris Rock right there, and he grew up just to be his partner and all that shit. Like I thought that was a lot more interesting than a lot of these other motives that they have, like people, guy kicking in a fucking door. Who cares about that shit? This is way better than that shit. And the killer wasn't the best killer in this movie, but the traps were at least escapable in this movie, where like unlike Hoffman, you can actually escape the traps, And this movie had some good traps and some good gore. There was like the whole trap where the girl's face got burned off by the tar or whatever the fuck that shit was. That was crazy as fuck. Then you got the scene where the guy's tongue gets ripped off by the fucking train. Fuck that. And then you got the whole puppet trap where Samuel L. Jackson, his hands are like this, and he has no choice, and he's moving, and the killer put a gun on his arm, and whenever the police walked in, the gun went like this, and it forced him to shoot because he's like a puppet, and then they killed him. But yeah, the twist in this movie was kind of predictable, and the reveal was pretty predictable. That was the main thing that was predictable, was the reveal. Everybody kind of knew that the killer was still alive and who he was, but it doesn't bother me as much. So yeah, coming in at number 2, you got the original Saw. So yeah, one of the best things about this movie is there's like a duo going on. There's a simple concept and not a very high budget. But since all of that shit's not there, James Wan and Leigh Whannell went all out on everything. And there's a lot of things that pay off in this movie that they set up at the beginning of the movie. And I mean, Jigsaw is probably the biggest horror icon that we've had in the 2000s, in my opinion. And my favorite thing about this movie by far is it's the most psychological horror movie out of all of the Saw movies. No other Saw movie is psychological like this. There's parts in this movie where they don't even have to show it. There's the whole thing of like, he's sawing his leg off because that's the only way to get out. But they're not even showing him saw his leg. They're just showing his face go, ah, while he's doing this, and you just see his arm going, and that's enough to fuck with your head, bro. But yeah, that segues me into my next point, which is this movie has really unique traps, and Jigsaw has a good motive in this movie compared to the Hoffman and all those other guys. Some of those other guys, they don't even have good motives, but Jigsaw, his motive is a lot better because he believes that these are actually bad people. And like I said, he actually lets you live. Unlike some of the other killers, he will give you the chance to live. There's the whole key going down the drain. A lot of people don't like that element of it, but then it kind of gets explained and retconned a little bit in what is it, Saw 3 or whatever. But it still doesn't work 100%. But you see what they were going for, though. You see what they were going for, and you respect it. Really, the only negative I have about this movie is every time I rewatch this movie, I just have this thing whenever I see Cary Elwes' acting. It just kind of takes me out of the movie a little bit. It doesn't make me dislike the movie. It just kind of like takes me out sometimes whenever you see him on the ground and he's like, ah, ah, ah. He's just like doing that. You're like, bro, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you're supposed to be like like some people talk about Cary Elwes like he's the fucking GOAT, and I'm like, bro, like the guy was laying on the ground going, ah, like I don't know, I can't really get behind his acting. So yeah, coming in at number 1, you got Saw 2, which is honestly one of my favorite horror movies of all time. I love this movie. This movie takes everything that Saw 1 does and just improves on it and does it way better. does it way bigger, and just does it in the best way that you can do it in Saw. But yeah, this movie is a horror classic. And there's also this is the start of like a lot of the gruesome traps, like I was talking about in like Saw 3 and shit. But like this is where some of the more body horror elements came in. Saw 1 was a lot more of a psychological horror movie, and it had the whole body horror thing, but it was more in your head. This is whenever they started showing, I mean, like, the whole scene where the guy picks up the girl and he throws her in the pit of syringes and all that shit. Like, that shit that genuinely fucks with you because you're looking at it. And, yeah, this is the movie that has the most Tobin Bell and Jigsaw besides Saw 3. And, Tobin Bell is giving my favorite performance besides Saw 3 in this movie. It's fucking, like, he eats up the screen time. And then you got the whole twist whenever he was telling them the truth the whole time. All they had to do was listen to Jigsaw, the police. All they had to do. But, they got too gung-ho and they got too crazy and they didn't listen to him, and his son was sitting in the safe in the room the whole time. And at the end of the movie, the safe opens up and you're like, what the fuck? That's my favorite twist in the whole Saw franchise. And it's honestly one of my favorite twists in any horror movie, whenever you just open it up and you're like, bro, all you had to do was listen to him the whole... Like, some people hate that. I love that because it just shows, like, he sticks to the rules. Like, there's sometimes whenever he goes off and Jigsaw, breaks his fucking rules. Whatever, it's a movie. You're going to have shit like that, where it's a movie about torturing people, an old guy. Of course, there's going to be things that's going to happen. And yeah, like I said, this movie has really good traps. It has the needle trap, whenever the girl gets thrown in the needle pit and she has to find the key. The razor trap, whenever the girl reaches up in the thing and then her arm gets stuck and she says, well, fuck it, let me just put my other arm in there. Because their head was getting, like, they were breathing in poison that whole day, so their head was already fucked up. So that's why her hand did that, because, she wasn't even in the right mind anyway, so of course she wasn't going to be thinking right. And then you got the Venus flytrap, where the guy's got the helmet and it closes. Crazy shit. This movie has the best characters to me besides Spiral. You got Donnie Wahlberg and his son, and then, his son finds out slowly that all the people that are in the game with him are people that his dad has put away, and a lot of them are, like, I think all of them are falsely accused or whatever. Anyway, a lot of them are, at least. But yeah, that just segues me in my next point. There's a lot of good writing and payoff, like, things that were set up in the beginning of this movie. I think that this movie has the best payoffs. There's the whole thing of whenever they all find out that the kid's dad is Donnie Wahlberg, and then you find out that Donnie Wahlberg's son was actually in the vault the whole time, and that's the twist at the end. And then there's the whole time twist whenever you find out that everything's taking place in the past, which, like I said, it's done way better in this movie than it was done in Jigsaw. And yeah, the whole Amanda apprentice, like I said, it works way better in this movie than it works in any other movie, because you, like I said, you have Amanda getting G-checked by John Kramer, so you don't really question a whole lot of shit. And like I said, there's that whole house concept in this movie where they're all locked in the house, and they're all fucking, they're all criminals and shit. There's that one creeper dude. They kidnapped them all, and then there's the drug dealer dude who just fucking hates all of them, and then there's the one hoe bitch. They're all like people that I would not want to be locked in the house with, for one. For two, you're breathing in poison gas, like I said, so that's the reason why they're all making dumb decisions and stuff. Like, in this movie, it's actually justified, because they were breathing in poison gas. Like, that disorients you, okay? But yeah, Saw 2. I could talk about this movie and these movies for so long. I love Saw 2. And I honestly love the movies, like the top 3 movies in this franchise. Like, even like the top 4, I really love Saw 3, Spiral, 2, 1. I love all those movies, really. So yeah. Thanks for coming by and checking out my opinion. You already know the deal, bro. Subscribe, like, comment, whatever you want to do. I ain't gonna force you to do nothing. G safe, you already know the motherfucking deal.